Hi everyone, today I'll be reviewing the 2024 Tesla Model 3 which I've owned for just under 2 months. This is an honest owner's review. This is the first time I've owned a Tesla. I've only owned BMWs in the past. I've owned 3 different BMWs. The 320 diesel E90 with the M Sport pack, as well as the E92 325i Coupe, and most recently I've had the BMW X3 G01 from 2018 with the sports pack as well. This is not the first time that I've experienced a Tesla. I've driven one Model 3 from 2021 and various Model Ys, 21 models and 22 models as well. And it was at that point that I actually really enjoyed the car, which gave me the confidence to place an order for the Model 3 Highland, especially after seeing some of the pre-production reviews on how much of an improvement it was over the previous Model 3. Let me show you around the car. We are at the Tesla Superchargers. I'm going to charge my car up and then show you the exterior of the car. So this is the new Model 3 Highland. It has the completely redesigned lights. It looks very slick. It actually reminds me of the concept Roadster that they haven't released yet, but it does look a lot slicker than the previous car. These are also the new 19-inch rims that I've configured, and otherwise, generally speaking, from the side, looks very similar to the previous car. One of the things that I don't like about the Model 3 is that it's got this swoopy, almost hatchback look, even though it's not a hatchback. I guess for aerodynamic purposes. It doesn't have a traditional sedan look where it goes down and flattens out. But from this, this is my least favorite angle. Otherwise, from this angle, it looks pretty good. It's got this really big spoiler lip, actually. Looks pretty cool. And it's got these new pencil-like brake light mirrors, and it's got a diffuser at the bottom here. They've replaced the Tesla logo with the Tesla wording. It's a very handsome car. Overall, I really do like the design. They no longer have the fog lights, so you actually cannot get fog lights with this car. So it's just the front lights with a small air intake at the bottom. As with all Teslas, here's one of the cameras. Another camera is in the door pillar here, and there's another camera under the trunk here, as well as a whole camera array by the windshield. So one of the issues that Tesla had in the early days was the quality in terms of the panel gaps. As you can see in the new Highland, this issue has more than been resolved. The gaps are pretty small and very even, as you can see. Although I did find that the gaps are inconsistent between different panels, although it doesn't look that bad. So if you can look here, obviously this is actually with the bumper, so that's pretty tight. But if you look at this gap versus this gap looks slightly bigger, but at least it's even along the specific panels that are next to each other. Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with the quality in terms of the panels. I think this one is slightly narrower here versus here, but it's very indiscernible compared to what they had before. So in Europe, we have a different charge port to the US models. We have the CCS2 standardized charge port, which is also the case here at the Tesla Supercharger. The top one is the one that you use. I actually think the bottom one is for older Teslas. Basically, you plug it in like that, just like the US one. This is a lot heftier and bigger. The US ones, the proprietary, is very small and easy to use. Not that this isn't easy to use, it's just a lot heavier to get out of the port. As you can see, you plug it in, and your car displays that it's busy charging. All Tesla models, there's a trunk and a frunk as well. We can store things. Unfortunately, the frunk cannot be opened from the outside without accessing the app, or from inside via the infotainment screen. So if you have an iPhone 15, what you can do is you can map the action button to open the frunk, and when mine presses down, it opens the frunk like that. It makes it so much easier to access, and it's actually pretty big. Like, you can put a small luggage, the carry-on luggage that you can take into planes. It fits perfectly in here. I usually use this for if I'm carrying wood, or if I'm carrying something that is dusty or dirty. that I don't want to ruin the upholstery in my trunk. So this is actually pretty handy to have a separate compartment, and this is also where you refill your car of windscreen wiper fluid, not gas. Onto the back to look at the trunk. So this is a powered trunk like the previous Teslas as well. One change that they made between the old one and the new Model 3 is that the back tail light is no longer disconnected. It is actually one piece, which makes it really clean, and I love the design, but I've hit my head so many times on this, so I don't know if this is a user error or a design flaw. But anyways, if you look in the trunk, there's a lot of space. The back seats, the rear seats fold down. You have to open them from the inside, however. And then there's these two deep areas to store things. You know, if you have small grocery items that you don't want to move around, you can put them into these bins on either side. And you can open this up. One thing I don't like is that there's no way for this to be latched up on top. You can remove it altogether, like so. Or you can push it back to the back, like that. Which means you have to pull it back and close it. Or what I do is I just wedge it and then it stays open like that. So what you get with the car, you get the safety kit, which includes, you know, the triangle as well as a vest. So in Portugal, I'm not sure about the rest of Europe, you have to wear a safety vest if you stop on the side of the road due to a hazard, so you're highly visible. Oh, you also get face masks as well. I wonder if that's a COVID thing. So then you also get a travel charger, which you can plug it home. This is the European one. This comes included. So in the US you actually have to buy this mobile connected charger. It is not free in the US, but in EU it's actually included. It comes with a nice case, and these cases have anti-slip behind the back of these cases, so they don't slide around if you want to put it on top. And then I've just included that this doesn't come with the car. I just have an extension cable for the mobile charger for charging home. And there's a bit of rubbish down there. None of that comes with the car. And it actually comes with one of these CCS type 2 chargers, I think, that you can use at the public charger. So the head is, the one side is for the car and the other side is to plug into the public charger. Demonstrate what I mean by these anti-slip behind this thing. So if I had to place this bag like this, it slides very easily around in the car, but this is so much friction and grip that it actually clings onto the fabric. Yeah, I must say the finishing of this upholstery, I'm concerned about the long-term longevity for this, because it feels like it will start, you know, mothballing or whatever you call it, and coming loose. It doesn't feel as premium as what I'm used to in the BMW trunks. What you may have noticed is that this car does not come with a spare tyre, neither does it come with run flats. So at least with BMWs, they remove the spare tyres, but they come with run flats, which means that if you get stuck on the road with a puncture, you are literally stuck, because it does not come with a tyre reinflation kit either. So that's definitely something to consider if you're going to be doing long road trips, because I do not want to be stuck on the side of the road waiting for a tow when I get a puncture. So I'll be getting a tyre reinflation kit as well as mobile tyre repair kit before our long road trips around Europe. The charging is almost complete, 5 minutes left, 99%. With the new LFP battery, which I have in the standard range model, you can charge it up to 100%, and they actually recommend that you charge it up to 100% at least once a week. So unlike the long range models with NMC battery, nickel, magnesium, cobalt batteries, these can be charged to 100% all the time without degradation. It does charge slower than the long range, so it charges up to 150 kilowatts, whereas I think the NMC batteries can go up to 250 kilowatts. That's something to consider if you're looking at the long range versus the standard range model. The long range has longer range and charges quicker, although they do not recommend you charge more than 80% frequently. The new Model 3 has double laminated windows in front and in the rear, so the cabin is very quiet. The front seats have been upgraded. It's quite comfortable. It's got cooling and heating now. Previously only heating was available. The difference between the driver's seat and the passenger seat is that the driver's seat actually has lumbar support, and it's a pretty good lumbar support as well. If I move it, you can see that the bottom of the seat is bulging back in, and you can actually move that lumbar up and down, which is pretty good. Everything is a powered seat. There's no option to have a non-powered seat. All Teslas come with powered seats. The standard range model has regular pedals. They're not metal. I actually think they look very cheap, to be honest, especially the accelerator pedal. It literally looks worse than my racing simulator pedals. I am definitely going to probably upgrade these to some metal ones or get covers for them. The biggest change that most people have noted is that it no longer has any stalks. So everything is controlled by the buttons on the steering wheel. No indicator stalks, no stalks for the lights, no stalks for the the windscreen wipers. I've gotten used to it. I like the design. One of the big changes is that they included this ambient lighting strip. There's a kind of a annoyance in that these two things don't line up. So the light also doesn't line up. I don't know why they didn't get this right, because they obviously manufactured it like this, and it exists on both sides. So you can see that panel by the door as well as the light strip by the door is higher than what it is on the front dash. Otherwise, the front dashboard isn't much different from the previous Model 3. They've obviously got this nice upholstery. It feels like a very minimal lounge design. And if you get the standard range model, the upholstery on the door is the same as this here. So it does feel like a cheap couch, to be honest. It's not very premium feeling, but it looks very neat and it doesn't look super cheap. One thing that I've noticed is I like this fake leather. I'm not sure if it's going to age well, because if you look here, it looks like, this is just from cleaning. It's nice and soft to the touch, but it looks like it might change color over time, as you can see here. So I'm a bit concerned about the long-term life quality of the finishes. I don't like that the stitching is so big. They've had this in the previous Model 3 as well. I think it stands out too much, and not necessarily in a good way. And otherwise, this part looks similar to the previous Model 3. They have this felt interior. This felt, if you get the long range model, is the same over there. So this is a much nicer feeling material than this upholstery. But as you can see, there's indentation marks from where the camera goes on the iPhone 15 on top here, but you can easily rub it out. It's not too much of a problem. Moving on to the storage compartments, they've made it much nicer. They've enclosed everything. Your cup holders are hidden away now, and it's a slide mechanism for that, as well as this. Excuse how dirty it is over here. And there's a lot of space. As you can see, my DSLR fits in here. There's actually a small shelf in there, so you can put your glasses in that shelf, if you can see. And the inside finishes is this velvety finish, and it looks like it might damage over time. Looking at this armrest, it looks like the velvet might come off. There's another deep storage compartment here. I'll keep all my cables in here. But yeah, it doesn't look like this will last very long, to be honest. And unlike the BMWs or any other car, it uses magnets to stay closed. So you can see there's no latches, so it just stays down via magnet, which is pretty cool, because there's less parts to break. It's obviously cheaper to make compared to having hinges. And to open the glove compartment, there is no button. There's no physical lock. There's a button over here for the glove box, and that is also closed via magnets. So there's two magnets on each side, so you can set a pin and lock the glove box. But given that it's magnets, you could probably just pry it open. There's no real lock, and it's actually quite a small glove box. I don't think you need anything bigger, to be honest, given that there's so much other storage compartment spaces. The door bins on the side are this like rougher material, just like the trunk. It's much nicer because obviously it's lined now. The previous one wasn't lined at all, and it feels very nice to the touch, to be honest. I'm quite impressed. And there's a lot of space, so you can have big bottles there on either side. So it comes down to a matter of taste. You either love it or you hated this minimal design. I think it's great, but I do think it's a bit bland. I think the BMWs feel a lot more comfortable and definitely feels more luxurious. But I think it's a completely different market segment, to be honest. Moving on to the back. So the rear seats, it's a pity I never get to use the rear seats, because I'm usually the driver and sitting in the front. They've improved this because in the previous model there wasn't any storage space here. This is actually very nice. There's a pull out cover and it is held in by elastic suspendables. Very clean, very neat. Doesn't look cheap. The previous chairs actually look very cheap compared to this. I really do like these new chairs. They look much nicer. But yeah, it's very spacious back here. You know, I'm not particularly tall, so I think there's more than enough legroom and space. You can also adjust the passenger seat if you're sitting back here and there's no passenger by the new screen at the back, which is really cool. So I can actually move the chair forward or back. And again, you know, at the back here's the lined door compartments. Very nice. I don't like this material like I mentioned before. And there is a armrest, but this armrest feels a bit strange. Like it doesn't feel very solid, as you can see, but it does the job. I mean, you know, it won't move while you're holding it. And the new cup holders have these little teeth so that your bottles don't move about. I think overall, you know, the back seats are very comfortable. These seats are very soft, very comfortable, and you know, they look very nice. But we'll have to see what it looks like in maybe 6 months from now. So to open earlier to show you the expanded rear seats, you can open them like this, and this material here is similar to the material in the door bins, and there is a very big through loading space over here. Unlike the Model Y, it's actually not a hatchback, so this cannot be removed. This is actually fixed in place, and if you have children and need Isofix, I think Isofix is here. I'm not actually 100% sure. Good job. Very nice back here. One complaint that I have is that this rear window, it's actually the same window from the top. As you can see, it's one piece starting from here, is very small. So you actually cannot see much through the rear view mirror because it's so high up. So this new screen in the back is pretty cool. It's a pity I'm not going to be able to use it because I don't sit in the back. You can actually watch Netflix and YouTube and stuff. You can control the chair, like I said, as well as control the climate and play games. There's also 2 USB-C ports here for charging, which is pretty cool. And since there's no drive shaft down here, this is completely flat. I'm still trying to get used to this because I think I'm so used to having that little hump in the middle. But yeah, it is very spacious and very comfortable back here. So as a passenger, I don't think anyone would complain, especially if they're not too big. One thing I never liked about Teslas is they don't have any door handles, because obviously there's another cost-cutting measure. But they've changed all these lights to touch controls, which is very nice. There's another one over there, and 2 in front also touch. They're no longer buttons, and they've actually included coat hooks. I'm not sure whether this was in the previous model or not, but you can have your coat hanging back here now, and these are very nice. They're actually soft close. There's no option to get black interiors for the roof lining, so if that was an option, or maybe that'll be a cool mod to change all this light colored material to black so the whole car is black. I'm used to the black on black interiors of the BMWs. Here is a breakdown of my configuration. I went for the standard range Model 3 and added 19-inch wheels as well as enhanced autopilot. All in, it came to 46,475 euros and 17 cents. So the new Model 3 is extremely comfortable to drive. The suspension has been revised. It is much softer than the previous one, so you can't really feel the bumps on the road. Compared with my previous cars, my BMW, I think it is a lot more comfortable. Granted, I do think the suspension is softer, and kind of how you get away with this is that the car is actually so heavy because the battery is, you know, in the bottom of the car, so you have a very low sense of gravity. So even with the soft suspension, it doesn't feel like you don't have much control around the corners. The other thing to take note of when driving the new Model 3 is that it is extremely silent because of the double pane windows, the acoustic glass in the front as well as the rear, and the fact that it doesn't have an engine. It is so silent. I honestly sometimes feel kind of tired when I drive, mainly because it's just so calm and peaceful in the car. In terms of performance, I've got the standard range model, which I think, for me at least, has or the ample performance, especially in a daily driver. Obviously, you know, I'm not comparing this to a sports car like a Porsche or a BMW M3, for example. This does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.1 seconds and has a lot of acceleration, as you can see. You know, an instant torque as you get from EVs. And I think overall, you know, it's a very nice drive. This new steering wheel is a little bit on the smaller side of what I'm used to, but I'm getting used to it now. It is very comfortable to hold. I don't really like this faux leather. Would have preferred if it was an actual leather steering wheel, but for a faux leather steering wheel, they've definitely made it a huge improvement over the previous material they were using in the old Model 3 as well as the Model Y. So kudos to them. Obviously they've been using this in the S and X for a while, and it definitely feels a lot more premium. I like this design with a Tesla written across the horn. The horn is in the middle now, so you don't have to press a button like on the Model X. So it is much more intuitive, especially in an emergency situation. You can press the horn immediately. The range of this car is rated online as 519 kilometers for the standard range model with the rims that I have, the 19-inch rims. I think with the Aero rims, you get a little bit more. I think 530 or something along those lines, or 550 even. But I haven't been able to achieve that range. As you can see, I just fully charged and my estimated range is 399 kilometers. You have to drive extremely slowly and conservatively. I think for city driving and short distance driving, the range is pretty good. So if I was only driving, let's say, under 10 kilometers per trip, I could probably achieve that range. But if you do a lot of long distance driving or longer distance driving or highway driving, especially if you reach higher speeds above 100 kilometers per hour, the range depreciates greatly. I've read online that because these cars have so much torque and how heavy they are, the tires need to be replaced more frequently than, you know, gas cars. This is exacerbated on the long range model because, you know, you have two motors, one motor in the front driving the front wheels and then another motor in the back driving the rear wheels. On top of the fact that it's a much heavier car, the long range has more batteries, much heavier than the standard range. So in terms of cost of running and ownership, I think the long range actually costs more because you replace your tires more frequently. The drive of the Model 3 is very sporty. I think even with the softer suspension, because of the weight, it feels very sharp. You know, the steering is very sharp. It doesn't feel like it's disconnected. You can also change how much tension or how stiff you want the steering to be. I currently have it on comfort, but you can change it to sport, I have it on standard rather. Comfort makes it much looser, so much more comfortable to drive, and sport stiffens it up. So these are pretty cool options if you want a more engaging drive. Oftentimes if I'm doing highway driving, I usually engage Autopilot, so I hardly use the steering wheel or even the pedals, but I usually have the acceleration pedal on standard instead of chill. The difference between the chill mode and the standard mode is that on chill it actually accelerates much more slowly, so you don't get the full performance. This is obviously beneficial for range, and standard gives you a bit more response and power on the pedal. One thing I've really liked about driving this car, and potentially a lot of other EVs, is that there's very minimal delay between your right foot stepping on the accelerator and power to the wheels. So I'm not even saying this from like a launch controls perspective or speeding. I'm more referring to how fine the throttle is, and you can, especially if you're trying to park in tight spaces, you want to move the car very slowly, you have a lot of control on getting the car to move forward and backwards if you're reversing. So I've got the enhanced Autopilot on my car, which adds navigate on highways, which gives it the ability to change lanes as well as navigate to your destination. It's a little bit different here in the EU compared to the US. So basically, enhanced Autopilot in the US allows you to navigate, and your car will basically drive all the way for you and automatically change lanes and take turn-offs, so you don't miss a turn-off. Whereas in the EU, that is not allowed, so lane changes have to be initiated manually. Here's a clip on what it looks like to initiate the lane change with enhanced autopilot in Europe.
Enhanced autopilot in EU. It cannot automatically change lanes. Step 1, manually indicate. Step 2, nudge the wheel. And then it changes.
You don't need enhanced autopilot, or you don't need to add any options to be able to do auto steer like this. This isn't a highway, this is just a regular road, and the Tesla is more than capable of keeping it within the lane and maintaining distance with traffic. It does a fairly good job. Although if you want it to navigate on city streets and, you know, turn at the intersection, stop at the stop street, or stop at the traffic light, you need to upgrade to FSD. In Europe, navigate on city streets is not available, so the extra premium that you pay for FSD over enhanced autopilot is that it automatically stops at traffic lights and stop streets. I don't really think it's worth it, because it can't take the roundabout for you like it can in the US, so that's a bit of a bummer. The highly controversial topic about this model is that it no longer has the stalks on the steering column, and a lot of people have complained, myself included. I've made a whole video about this, especially going around roundabouts, with the indicators being on the steering wheel itself, because it's not consistent and doesn't stay in the same place. So when your steering wheel is upside down, for example, the buttons are on the wrong side of the steering wheel and also inverted, so it makes it a little bit complicated to figure out which button to press. The other things that I've kind of missed about having stalks is actually having the windscreen wiper adjustment. Everything in the Tesla seems like you should just let it use automatic settings. The lights are automatic. There's no control to turn off the light. Everything's automatic by default. You can obviously change it by, let's say, pressing the windscreen wipers and then changing the settings here in the screen. But it's such a hassle because, you know, it's actually difficult. It's not very tactile to always use the screen. So I just leave it on automatic, and I think that's basically how they want you to use it. I think a lot of people debate why they've done this. You know, is it a design thing, making it look cleaner? And then there's another camp of people that, you know, just complain and say that it's a cost-cutting measure. I can definitely tell you that cost is a major factor, because in the Tesla, I've noticed that there's a lot of things that exist in other cars, even pretty affordable cars, not luxury brands like BMW, Mercedes, Audi, just regular cars. You know, all cars now have 360 cameras. Tesla decides they don't want to put extra cameras on their car, even though I think cameras are really cheap to do 360 cameras. So they've done it via software, as well as the fact that they removed the ultrasonic sensors, which were a very cheap component in the car. Including manufacturing and installation, I don't think it adds that much to the manufacturing cost, but that has been quite a big gripe for me. As I mentioned in the interior review, you know, the glove compartment as well as all the other parts, they don't have any latches, so they rely on magnets. Magnets are definitely much cheaper than latches, less moving parts. So overall, I do think cost is a major factor. I think they've done an excellent job of making the car look good, feel good, given that they're using, you know, more affordable parts. So I can't really complain too much about it. I think they're coming up with creative ways to save on costs, as well as make the car a good product. If any of you want to see me do a comparison between the Tesla Model 3 and any other EVs, especially the BYD, which is very popular here in Europe, please let me know in the comments below, and I will try and arrange to get the other EVs and we can do a side-by-side comparison of these cars. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Please smash the like button and subscribe for more Tesla content and travel content around Europe.